If you're planning to ride the Trans-Zero Trail that's in Europe, or maybe the BDR in the United States, or maybe the Backcountry in Australia, then stick around, that I would like to share with you some practical tips, things that I have learned during my trips that I think will also be useful to you. And when I say practical tips, that's because it's going to apply to any skill level. So that's not a video about making you a better rider. There are other channels that can do a much better job that I'll ever be able to do it. But in here is just to make sure that you get the most out of your trip. And if you want to improve your riding skills, then check out some other channels. If you're like most riders, at least that's where I fit myself, unfortunately, we don't get the chance to ride for a living. So riding is a hobby that we have, and you have to share this hobby with other responsibilities in your life. And that could be that you have a job waiting for you to come back, you have a family. In my case, I have 2 daughters, 2 children waiting for me to come back. I have a wife, maybe you have a wife, a husband, and you now have these few selected days or weeks throughout the year that you get the chance to have your motorcycle trip. And what I would like to do in here is to help you to get the most out of this limited amount of time that you have available. In other words, I think that means that the stakes are quite high. I mean, some of you are probably planning for this and looking forward for this trip several months in advance. And the last thing you want to happen is that for whatever reason, something you didn't think about, you just end up being disappointed, or you don't get the chance to enjoy most of the time that you planned for that trip actually riding. So that's why I think this video might be useful to you. So let's start with the tip number 1, and that is for you to check and plan in advance the route that you're going to do. Now, if you have ever heard any rider telling you that this is not a real adventure if you are checking in advance where you're going to ride, well, I would encourage you to just let it go. I personally disagree with that, especially when you consider that if you have a limited amount of time, if you have there your 2 weeks to do your riding, I imagine that you want to spend most of the time riding. And giving you a practical example, I live in Austria. The last trip that I've done in August, I was in Hungary, Croatia, and Bosnia. Now, I don't know those countries. That's a different country, is a different language, and these are large places to ride. I don't know in advance where are the best routes. Where should I really go to spend most of the time off-road and that the roads are going to be good? I have no idea. So if I would just take my motorcycle, head to these countries and start wandering around with my motorcycle, I guarantee to you that I probably would waste a lot of time and not really do the riding that I want to do. So never mind people that tell you this is not a real adventure. It is an adventure. You're going to encounter your challenges and your adventure along the way, despite the fact that you're checking the route in advance. And when I say that you should check the route, try to get an idea of what type of terrain to expect. Are you going to be riding on earthy, muddy terrain? Is it going to be mostly gravel? Is it going to be slow, technical, lots of larger stones? Is it sandy terrain? Are you going to be riding on high altitude, low altitude? Is it going to be cold? Is it going to be hot? So take these factors into consideration, because that's going to dictate the type of gear that you should bring with you. Should you be ready for a lot of rain? Should you be ready for cold weather? Are you going to be totally isolated from civilization? Do you have many petrol stations along the way, or do you have to plan to have maybe a larger fuel tank or carry additional fuel with you? Is it easy for you to get a hotel at a reasonable cost? Is it easy for you to get help? Check the language skills that you're going to need for your trip. If you're doing the BDR in the United States, well, then you can rely only on English. But if you're doing the Trans-Zero Trail in Europe, you could easily, in a matter of 2 weeks, cross 4 different countries, and you come across 4 different languages. Yes, a lot of people speak English, but it might be a good idea to download in advance an app that has the translation, offline translation. Also there you can consider, do you need to get an additional SIM card for the country that you are going or not? So you see that all of these variables, they come with the preparation of checking the route and that you're going to be riding. Moving to tip number 2 is accommodation. Now here I'm going to have to steal a sentence that I absolutely love from our internet riding buddy, that's the channel Dork in the Road. I think he said something that is just great, that I'm going to have to borrow and add my comments on it, which is, do you ride to camp or do you camp to ride? And let me use here a little story to really make this very clear what I think he meant in there. At least that's how I see it, and I think it was beautiful what he said. Back in 2023, I was doing the Trans-Zero Trail in Bosnia. So I was in Bosnia with another 2 friends of mine, And the most magical evening that we've had, it was a camping evening. So we ended the day around 5 p.m. We found this perfect spot. We could see some sheep in the background, or some mountains. The weather was perfect. A friend of ours, Jacob, he had a hidden with us. We didn't know that, but he had a bottle of rum. It was just perfect. We made some fire, we were eating, and we stayed up until 1 a.m. just chatting along. It was definitely the most magical evening of the entire trip. Yeah, so that was a camping evening. With that said, I am definitely not a type of guy that I ride to camp. What I'm really doing, I'm camping to ride. That means that my focus is on the riding, and the camping might just happen, but I'm not taking my motorcycle with the focus that I want to do a lot of camping. It's just more the opposite. I just use the camping in order to allow me to ride as much as possible. And why am I like this? Well, I'm like that because when I have to do the camping, I'm sacrificing on my quality of the sleep that I get. I'm sacrificing on the types of food that I'd like to eat. I have to carry additional stuff. I have to bring the water, the food. Uh, Everything takes longer. You have to prepare your tent. The hygiene is sacrificed. I really don't like to just go more than 2 days without taking a proper shower to get everything out and wash down completely. And for me, it's just not the same to go on a river. Yes, I like to jump on a lake, jump on a river to refresh, but at the end of the day, I like to take a shower and sleep on a nice bed. Now, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but I just like more to sleep on a bed. So this exchange, that's exactly what's happening here. When I do the camping, I'm sacrificing on all or many other factors that prioritize the quality of my riding in order to have a great evening. And as I just said, it was really the best evening we had throughout the whole trip. But because of this wish of camping, every time, every day when we were riding, and that's why I'm there on that trip, is for the riding, everything got sacrificed a little bit, sometimes a lot, sometimes a little bit, and you just have to carry all that extra stuff. It's not only the tent, but it's the sleeping mat, it's the blanket, it's the additional food that you have to carry, it's the additional stops that you have to make to plan when you go to the campsite, that you have everything. And I just don't like all of that, right? I would like to just exclude. So if I go to this year, 2024, there was no camping at all, and I enjoyed it much more. Even though we didn't have such a magical evening, as a whole, for the whole trip, I enjoyed much more. So it was lighter, I just could have the hotel, and sometimes it's just, it makes more sense also financially. Not only we get the additional comfort, but depending on where you're riding, the country that you're going, or the region in the United States, I don't know the cost of living in the US, but in some places you can get a pretty good deal for a very reasonable amount of time, maybe even including breakfast. So the next day you don't have to now to spend more time to go find a place to have breakfast. You have it right there, and everything for a reasonable price. So overall, ask yourself, what type of rider are you really? Do you prioritize camping or do you prioritize riding? I have to say that on our group of riders, I haven't yet met any rider that truly they say their priority is on camping. They might do it, but you can easily get lured into this idea. It's very romanticized, especially if you're watching YouTube videos, and I know it looks really cool, and I still have the videos and pictures from when you're camping. Of course, it's cool to look back, and I think you should do it as an experience, but be honest to yourself. Just don't watch some YouTube videos and think that I must do camping because that's the whole experience. It's not it. It's only for a few people, and I haven't yet personally found someone who puts camping in front of riding. Tip number 3 is going to be learn how to work on your motorcycle. And it could be from the basics and also to doing some more advanced stuff. The truth is that today, if you have access to internet, and that's going to be all of us if you're watching this video, you can find dozens of YouTube channels, good quality stuff that will teach you from the very basics of just changing the oil filter, the air filter, all the way to going deep inside of your engine. You can be sure that for most motorcycles, you're going to find someone sharing this knowledge and making it available either on YouTube or some internet forums, but there is resource. I'm not saying that you need to become a pro. That's not what I'm preaching in here, but I promise to you, if you get a few basics, that's going to help you on 90% of the things that you could expect to happen when you're traveling. If you know how to change the oil and oil filter, the air filter, you can check your suspension, if you know how to check your brake fluid, if you know how to adjust the chain and the chain lock of your motorcycle, keep the chain clean. That's 90% of what you can expect to encounter. If you know how to do that, you're pretty well covered. Now, if you have a crash and accident, well, then of course it's different because every crash might damage something different on your motorcycle. But for the basics, you're pretty well covered just by learning this. And the best way to do it is to do it at home. So just do the preventive maintenance at home so you're ready when you go on your motorcycle trip. Tip number 4, make sure to bring the right tools for your motorcycle. I don't recommend you to rely purely, you could even use some of the tools that the OEM, the manufacturer of your motorcycle, includes for you. That's fine, you don't need to throw them away, but don't rely on them purely because this is very basic. Some OEM kits, they don't even allow you to remove the wheel of your motorcycle, so if you have a flat, you're pretty much lost in there. When looking into building your own toolkit, well, you have two options in here. Option number 1, you build a toolkit by yourself, so you have to go around on your motorcycle and then check which tools that you need for your motorcycle model. Or option number 2, and I recommend you to check it out, I'm going to leave the link here in the description, is to check the toolkits that we have at royamoto.com. It's royamoto.com/toolkits. What is the advantage of going for our toolkits? Well, they have already been pre-checked for you. We only offer toolkits that are specific for certain motorcycle models, so the tools that you get have already been pre-checked for you. You don't have to do the guesswork in here. When you consider the amount of tasks that you can do, it's a very compact and lightweight toolkit. It comes on a very smart tool roll, so everything is organized and in the right place. And also it's good value for money. So if you would try to build the same toolkit that we offer with the same amount of tools and the quality of the tools that we are using, that would cost you a lot more. So check out royamoto.com/toolkits if you don't have yet a toolkit for your motorcycle. I think you're really going to like that. Tip number 5 is going to be prioritize your protective equipment. Now, of course it is, let's take this for granted, you should go on such trips with the proper protective equipment, with the proper gear, but I think you can put the focus specifically on 2 items. All of them are important, but 2 of them I think are critical in here. Number 1 is obvious, and it's going to be your helmet. As of 2024, if you make the right choice, you're going to spend between $400 to $500 or euro, and you are covered when it comes to safety. Right? You can get very good helmets in terms of safety in this price range. If you're paying much more than that, and probably you're paying a little bit for the brand and some additional functionality, but in this price range, 400 to 500 US dollars or euro, for safety you can find great stuff. The next one that I think very often riders don't put the effort that is needed from the beginning are going to be the riding boots. It's much more common to see riders spending a lot of time and money trying to get the perfect jacket and the perfect pair of trousers or even gloves, and the boots, they kind of stay with less priority. And I think that's a mistake if you look statistically. So let's just be very pragmatic in here. Statistically, if I remember well, it's about 70% of the incidents that you have on a motorcycle trip, especially if you're going off-road, they happen with the lower limbs. Now, you can imagine here your ankle or your shin, your foot. These are places that when you go down, it's very likely that your motorcycle can fall on top. Your foot is just there very close to the ground. You can just hook on something and get twisted. So your legs and your foot, ankle, really put the effort in there. I have a video here on the channel about the motorcycle boots TYRE SG22. These are top of the line boots. You don't have to buy the TYRE SG22, even though I like those boots. But look at the main manufacturers of motorcycle boots. They all offer the MX style motorcycle boots, and that's what I have chosen to ride with. And what I mean by that is that you don't need to ignore completely the jacket. Of course not. You still need the jacket, you need your back protector, your elbow protector, you need all of that. But before spending upwards of $1,000 or euro on having the top of the line jacket that has an integrated membrane and waterproof and all of the fancy stuff, maybe invest on a more basic jacket at a reasonable price that offers good protection, especially the impact protection. And if it starts raining, well, then you just buy a separate rain suit, rain cover. Yes, it's going to cost you much less. Maybe it's not as convenient as the integrated top-of-the-line jacket. But if you need to do this compromise, where you're going to prioritize the money, the limited budget that you have, I would first go on helmet, then the boots, and then it would come the rest. Tip number 6 is going to be, whenever possible, go on such trips with friends, with other riders. And let's be clear, I also like to ride alone. I would even say that I prefer to ride alone. There is something about just being with my motorcycle, the road, and myself just alone. It really clears my head. I really enjoy that, and you have all of the freedom to do it at your own pace, go to the place that you want, start the day when you want, end the day when you want. So you have a lot of freedom when you're alone. I enjoy that very much. But I have to say, I learned that, luckily I didn't learn the hard way, that you are acting like an insurance policy for each other. I have 2 daughters waiting for me, I have a wife waiting for me, I have a job that is waiting for me. So all these people are counting that I come back home safely, and having friends with you will help you to achieve that. And to close this video, let's call it tip number 7, is just enjoy the journey. The adventure is going to come to you no matter what. When you do these type of trips, you can expect that you need to be flexible, you need to adapt as things will come to you. And look at this from the positive side, everything is part of the journey. So if you start to get too picky and it's not going to according to plan, even though you watch this video that you should be watching to see what you can expect from it, something still gonna come up that you haven't thought about it. And when this happens, just enjoy it. It's part of the journey. That's it, guys. I hope this video, you have learned something from it. It's impossible to say everything on a video. So if you have a tip, make sure to drop here in the comments for other riders to see. Ride safe, and I see you on the next one. Bye-bye.